Welcome back to Hot Takes and Deep Dives. And DOMINICK PUPA is a comedian, a writer, and a producer, having worked on The Real Housewives of New York, The Real Housewives of Atlanta, The Long Island Medium with Teresa Caputo, The A-List New York, which do not think I forgot about that. Well, I want to talk about Austin Armacost. He was my boy crush for a while.
Love him.
Don't Be Tardy. You're also the co-host of the podcast Fixing Famous People alongside Krista Rosa, who was on this show not too long ago talking all about the many seasons of New York that he's produced, Real Housewives of New York, and he just wrapped up filming Jersey. We're getting into a lot of stuff here. We're going to be here a while. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I am so thrilled that we're finally doing this because we've been chatting about it for weeks. So I'm so thrilled. And you were so great on our podcast, by the way, which is how we met because Chris brought you on Fixing Famous People.
Yes, Fixing Famous People. Explain the concept of it.
The concept came from Chris, my co-host, and which is... You know, we sit around bitching all the time as producers about how to make wayward celebrities better. Why didn't he do this? Why didn't she do this? And Chris and I didn't actually know each other very well. He just said we should do a podcast because he had seen my holiday show and knew that we had the same energy and the same rhythm. And we are. If you listen to the podcast, it is sometimes difficult to tell who is who.
You also have the same voice.
We have the same gravelly, gay voice for sure.
But
so
isn't it so
difficult.
interesting that you're both producers of The Housewives?
Yeah. And almost 20 years apart in age, which is hilarious.
Do you know what's the most hilarious thing? I don't know if you remember this when on the Zoom when I was doing my episode, which was the Ellen DeGeneres episode, which I didn't even know that I was so passionate about my hatred for her. In the Zoom, like I was on to promote Finding Fire Island. And so like, I'm like, oh, like, have you ever been to Fire Island? And literally until you were like, yeah, I lived there for 20 years. I actually thought you were straight.
Oh my God.
In the Zoom, you were giving off straight man.
He must have been so hungover. I have no excuse for it. And wearing a trucker hat. I do have some straight visual moments, but you know, obviously, the moment I start to move or speak, you're like, oh, her. Yeah, we all get it.
Until you said you were, at first, in fact, I was like, are you serious? Like, I thought you were fucking with me.
Nope. 20 years, did it all.
I want to talk about that as well.
Sure.
But first, I want to start with a pop quiz.
Sure.
Who is smarter at monetizing an exploitation? Bethenny in the year of our Lord 2023 or Madonna 1990 to 1993 at the height of her powers?
My God. I'm going to say... Well, it's really like who's smarter, the teacher or the student who learned the best. I mean, it's very chicken in the egg.
That was poetic.
Thank you. I mean, I don't want to cop out here, but I'm going to say Madonna because you should always defer to your elders. And I only mean that in the best possible way. But she wrote the book, she wrote the book on how to do it. I definitely think Bethenny improved on the book and just wrote her own chapters for what it is she does,
Bethenny had to be smarter about it. I think Madonna had it easier in the sense that she could always do merch. Like that was easy. She had this huge audience, global audience. I think she nailed it with the associations to celebrities, like the Warren Beatty, the Sean Penn, the Sandra Bernhard. Like she knew how to pick her moments there. Even what's her name from Dirty Dancing,
Jennifer Grey.
Yeah, they were all in the same posse. Whereas Bethenny is very much alone. Like I don't think Bethany's not. Hanging out with Sandra Bernhard.
Not a lot of celebrity friends with her. There's not a squad with her. Yeah, she's very much, and I don't know that she minds that either. I mean,
she had to be more creative in the modern day society. But at the end of the day, I don't think Madonna would be having Raquel on her podcast.
Right.
Should those things have been in place at the height of Madonna's powers?
I wonder. I mean, Bethenny is just... You will be hard-pressed to find a more keen observer of pop culture, particularly from the inside. I mean, she took advantage of her popularity. You want to say better than anyone, but she took advantage of it first, which is really the key to her story, is that she set the template. You know, the Bethenny clause is a real fucking thing.
I always wondered if that really does it literally say the
It does not say Bethenny clause, but everyone knows that that's what it is. Everyone who thinks they're going to have a great time on a television show and then gets to the point where it says any uptick in your business has to go to us. Whoa. Like you slam on the brakes, because she was the last person who didn't have to sign something like that. And it's called the Bethenny clause colloquially, and is very... It's not even scandalous anymore. It is very much, you know, when explained by the right person, seems very logical. It's, you don't have any money now, and when we put you on this platform and you start to make a ton of money, we should just get part of it. It's really, the Bethenny clause is quite simply a commission.
So you specifically produced season 2.
I was a field producer on season 2 of Real Housewives of New York, which was 2008.
Before we get into that, I want to spend a lot of time on that. Before we get into that, let's up top discuss the Vanity Fair piece.
Sure.
So we can talk about this in sections. Obviously, I don't know that I need to really summarize it. The 3 main beats of it were Leah McSweeney. I mean, Bethenny was kind of the umbrella. I think she brought the story to the writer. It was under the umbrella of Bethenny and the reality reckoning, quote unquote.
Right.
We had Leah and a lot of Ebony and Ramona. As a producer, and also I want to talk about, where's the reckoning for the producers?
Right.
Oh, I think we should bring that.
Sure.
Forget about these cast members. What about these crew members and producers that are there way later than the cast and are paid? We can get into that.
Compared to what they have to do and the pressure they're under, you can say peanuts for sure. I thought the article was very interesting because it was positioned as a bit of an expose, yet I felt exposed nothing.
We knew everything.
It was there were no surprises in the article.
Did you know that Leah was suing Bravo?
I honestly did not.
The only thing that I found really interesting were the transcripts of the hot sheets. Like that, I was like, okay, I'm seeing something that normally I wouldn't.
Well, that's the scandal, and that's what I hear people talking about when we go out, is who leaked Andy's emails. That's just because it doesn't matter what business you're in. That's just the no. I don't think he even said anything particularly damning, by the way, in the emails. I think he did what someone in his position would say in those emails. But there's only a handful of people on an Andy email. So the people that are on it should be, I'm assuming they've already emailed everyone they know an alibi to why it was not them, but that's the big miss. That's what producers are talking about in New York, especially, is like who was on the email and who leaked it. So that once that person is discovered, they won't work anymore.
Do you think Andy himself and his publicist and whatever team he has, his lawyers or whoever, do you think they were having an inner meltdown about that, in the way obviously like a Justin Timberlake is having, his entire team is having a meltdown?
I don't know. My gut about him is that he is is prepared to be canceled. You know what I mean? And I don't think he's having any sort of moral conundrum about any of his actions, because I don't believe that he thinks he did anything wrong, and I don't think he did anything wrong either. I mean, I think it's a dicey job. You have to make some interesting decisions in order to produce an entertaining television show. Is there a line? 100%. Like, you know, and if there's a line and you're at work or you're on a show and something doesn't feel right, don't fucking do it. Like, it does not. If you think your grandmother's going to die, get in an Uber and go see her. If you think that you're going to fall off the wagon by appearing on a television show, don't do the television show. You know, it's very...
Like, where is the... And I actually really like Leah. I'm one of the few at this point.
Very entertaining, man. Like, very... I loved her on the show. I thought she was great.
I interviewed her, and she answered every single question. She looked me dead in the eyes. She was funny. She was charming. I genuinely like her. Mm-hmm. And I liked her on the show both seasons. I know I'm in the minority. However, I have a lot of questions for her.
Yeah.
Where's the accountability? The accountability at all.
That was the other weird thing about the article, was that the author kept saying that they are a fan, and I thought, wow.
I hated the writer.
It's like, A, I don't want to know that either way, and B, well, you picked really bad quotes, because I don't, I can't say whether or not Leah McSweeney is unhinged, because I don't know what the other quotes were. It seemed like the quotes that were chosen were deliberate in order to point the article somewhere, but it just kept going in circles. And the thing is, everyone is talking about it. Like, everyone who does what we do, there's definitely people talking about it. But I think we're more talking about the audacity of having published the article, leaking emails, and not proving anything. Everything in the article was less incendiary than anything that happened on the series Unreal. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that big of a deal. Everything, all the problems in the article were solvable with just simple decisions.
I mean, the crux of Leah's thing is the show seemingly made her go crazy. After the second season, she checked into a mental health facility.
Right.
And she says that, like, in her intake form, it was, cause, all these things, triggers, the show.
Right.
Naming the show as the main source of triggering an issue for her. And yet she went on Girls Trip as a sort of tryout, because they promised her, if you do a good job on Girls Trip, we'll cast you on Legacy.
Right.
So she hated it so much that not only did she go on Girls Trip, when she didn't get on Legacy, she hated it and hated them so much that she's suing them for not giving her more.
Right. She was a very strange anchor to an article that purported to say, look what they're doing to these poor people, and the poor person that they picked
wants it, so would run over you to do it
just
again.
Kept making the wrong decision time and time again. Like, if it didn't work for you, then don't do it again. Why do you keep doing it?
It must be because she needs the money. It's
sure.
When they said the $250,000 for 1 week in Thailand for Girls Trip, I was like, okay, listen, everybody needs a job.
Sure.
But if this is the thing that's actually, like, damaging your mental health, there's other ways to make an income.
Right. And, the thing is, too, and this is for the producers and the cast of a show like Housewives, is that the pressure is real. And it's not something that's, I don't know what word I'm trying to, it's not like untoward to say to somebody, like, we have 4 insane cast members. They're great on camera. They deliver every time. And you're the quiet one. I need you to not be the quiet one. Do people say that in much more colorful ways? I'm sure, but a cast hearing that, you have to understand that people saying that to the cast are hearing it from their bosses, production company bosses, network bosses, which as a producer, you have to answer for the behavior of people that no matter what people think about reality producers, you cannot actually control what they are doing if they are not scripted. So your job is dependent on how entertaining someone is going to be in their real life for you. And if they are not entertaining, then you have to answer to someone who says, why are you not good at your job? And you can't throw your hands up and say it's the cast's fault. You're responsible. It's a very, as I'm saying it the way I'm saying it, it is a little fucked up. It is a little savage, but that is the job. I mean, the job is to make something entertaining, and that is much more difficult than people would think. But and I think that the people who sign up for shows like this know you have to be not crazy, but you have to be dynamic. It's the bare minimum, like, look at Jenna Lyons.
Yeah.
Is she like the most animated, insane? She's not ripping off a prosthetic leg. She's not vomiting on the Hamptons jitney, but she's the most watchable.
Correct.
I mean,
she's the only fundamentally interesting one.
She's incredibly entertaining in what she does. So there are degrees of it. You don't have to drop your pants, and no one has to wonder, is she peeing or is she vomiting? Like, you just be like Jenna. Just show up to a reunion in jeans. That's a thing. But you know what? That's entertaining. That's the job. Piss people off, get them talking. On the New York reunion, they were openly pissed that she showed up underdressed, but that's what she does. Like, that's how she gets people talking. Some people need to urinate on camera. Other people just put on a pair of jeans, but you just got to find what makes you entertaining, and you got to do it. It's part of the deal.
How closely, I know that you, like, ever since you've worked on Housewives, you're now, the VP of an entertainment company,
Yes.
and you worked on all sorts of shows. How closely, like, do you still watch the Housewives?
Periodically, yeah. I'll be honest, I catch up on them a lot at my parents' house. My parents are in their 70s, and they live on Long Island, and they love New York, Beverly Hills, and Salt Lake City. Those are their three, and of course Vanderpump. Like, they love all of them. They binge them when I'm there, and I watch them, and they're still different, but also still the same. Like, the fundamentals of that job are very much still the same.
When it was announced that they were firing all of the originals and basically splitting the show in two, rebooting it and creating a legacy, were you surprised?
Yes. Yeah. I was surprised. And I shouldn't even be announcing this. I wasn't sure that it was going to work. I didn't think that it was
a reboot.
Yeah, I just didn't think it was going to work. And then I watched the first episode of the new RHONY, fell in love with it, and immediately said to Chris, my pod partner, I was like, this...
Who has produced like 5 seasons of New York.
Sure.
Yeah, in recent years.
Yes. That the new RHONY is what And Just Like That thinks it is and wants to be. You know what I mean? Like, it's really, that's what you want to see on And Just Like That. And I felt like they were doing that on RHONY. I felt like they might have lost their way a little bit toward the end.
What's your review holistically now that it's all aired?
It just needed a little bit more. You can't rely on Jenna that much. You need some, like, I feel like every time Jenna walks in a room, she could be sitting there silently. I don't know what it is about her. I just think that she was born to be filmed. Like, she was born to be on a television show. I felt like everyone else, not everyone else, but a lot of them might have gotten caught in the trap of, like, I got to do this because
I got to do Housewives.
Yeah. And what you want is someone who's not trying. Like, you want someone who's that interesting that they won't have to, like, obviously put on a show that isn't them. Because you can feel it when you're watching. When that's happening, Do
you think Jenna's coming back?
I don't know.
I don't think she is.
Why do you think that?
Because she's now in a very serious relationship. She's a very serious girlfriend, and the girlfriend wants no part of it.
And now, she was in the relationship when they shot this season, wasn't she?
Different person.
Oh, see, I thought that some of the other cast members were pissed because, like, Jenna gets to be on. She doesn't talk about her business. She doesn't talk about her partner, anything like that.
No, so the initial person she was dating, that I think was a more casual thing. And then she met Cass Blackbird or Cass Bird, who's like a very successful photographer. They met, I think, shortly before the season started to air.
Okay.
So I think, and in fact, there's something on Reddit where somebody was reporting, like, just ran into Jenna, and she was with the girlfriend. She was like, the person was like, can I get a picture with you? And the girlfriend was like, this happens all the time. And she's like, I can't wait to see you next year. And she's like, you won't. Like, the girlfriend, like, snapped back, like, good luck, like, you won't.
Wow.
And I think Jenna, for very good reason, values this relationship.
I mean, it's either her or the show, obviously.
It's her. She's not going to BravoCon. Good fucking luck. Doesn't give a fuck about BravoCon. No. Yeah. Which I love.
She just didn't need... She doesn't need... That's the issue, is, like, she very clearly doesn't need the show. She was very much...
I mean, I think she accomplished what she set out to. She doubled or tripled her following.
Yeah.
Everyone in America loves her.
Yeah.
I'm sure she's getting offers left and right.
I'm sure she is, yeah. She's very talented.
It's a shame because that Stylish with Jenna Lyons show, which aired on HBO Max, which it was kind of like...
I don't know it.
Oh, it was kind of like... I always joke that it was the rich man's Big Shot with Bethenny.
Okay.
I said that to Chris. He loved it. It was very much like this, like a similar Apprentice style show. Mm-hmm. And it showcased Jenna as like a boss and an interior designer. And it was great. She was still her awkward self.
Right.
But it's a shame because that's the natural pivot of the show that she would sort of go. She wants to be on reality TV.
Yeah.
Clearly. She's been trying at this for like...
But it's got to be on her terms. Yeah. She's been successful enough that the whole "it's got to be on my terms" thing is so, it's just built into her. You know, like she seems smart and unbendable when it comes to that stuff.
Going back to the Vanity Fair article, the Ebony and Ramona portions.
I don't know what to make of it because I thought it was such sloppy reporting that it's just sort of like a display of evidence, all of it unsubstantiated, some of it investigated, some of it not. And ultimately, when that article ended, I kept scrolling through pages and pages of ads. I'm like, oh, this shit's done? Like, where's the button? Where's the...
Also, Ebony said everything. She said everything we read 2 years ago on Carlos King's podcast.
Aha.
I was like, I've heard this shit before.
So there wasn't even a new... Oh, wait. But it was a new interview, though.
It was a new interview, but she was just... go back to the interview with Carlos King, the same stuff.
Interesting.
And they had an investigation at Bravo, and Ramona was... I don't know. It's confusing because, like, she was fired and then rehired. It's confusing.
And then went on Girls Trip, right?
That's what I mean by rehired. For 2 girls' trips.
Yeah.
Obviously, she was after this whole Page 6 thing. Are you up on this?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Obviously, which is she just can't help herself.
Yeah, she really can't.
The most interesting thing, I think I read it today. She was let go. She's a broker as well at Douglas Elliman. Douglas Elliman let her go.
Recently, because of all this nonsense.
Like yesterday.
Oh, my God.
That, to me, is the most interesting thing to come out of all of this.
Yeah.
Because that's real consequences.
Yeah.
Although you can just go to another brokerage or whatever, but...
I mean, but knowing that she was let go from the biggest name in town because of racist reasons, it'll be hard for someone to scoop her up and say, I'll hire you. Obviously, that's a really good point.
Let's go back in time.
Sure.
The year is 2008.
Mm-hmm.
What a time.
Oh, yeah.
What a time.
Yep.
Was Obama in yet or no?
No. They were campaigning that summer. That's all we talked about that summer was Hillary and Obama.
Okay, first of all, how did you become a producer? Were you excited? Because where were you in your
I was
career?
Thrilled. I had done talk shows for about 10 years.
Producing them?
Yeah, here in New York, Ricki Lake, Maury Povich, and then I moved to Chicago and I worked on Jenny Jones in the last 3 years of that show. And then I can't remember how I ended up in LA. I think it was on, remember the before Facebook, there was a website called Classmates, and that's how you would find all of the people you graduated high school with, just on a website, because there was no social media.
That's so funny. Don't remember Classmates, but Friendster was very important to me.
This is right pre that. And they had a TV show where they were reuniting people who were loves in high school. Then I started working at The Bachelor, and I did that on and off for I think 6 or 7 seasons, but in between that I came back to New York and I did a season of Housewives. I know Matt Anderson was executive producing it at the time. He and his company, Pop, Purveyors of Pop, still do a bunch of Housewives and Married to Medicines. I think they do Miami as well. And we had mutual friends and he hired me and I did season 2. So that's how I came to that. And I think it was because of my Bachelor experience counted, obviously, as relationship experience. So, and they do, like I said, they do a lot of really successful programming. And so I got to learn from Matt how that whole bag worked, basically, on Housewives. And it was really interesting. The cast then was Luann, Ramona, Bethenny, Jill, and Kelly Ben-Simone. That was her first
Kelly's
season.
first season. Sonia, not yet with us.
Not yet with us. I was the field producer. I mean, if you are a big enough fan or old enough, we shot it. Kelly and Bethenny at Brass Monkey.
Yep.
And Kelly said, I'm up here and you are down there. And I was like, oh, this is something. And they started going at it. And if you watch the scene back, I believe someone's leaning against the door and I'm crushed behind it in order to prevent the two of them from banging their faces into each other. But that summer, that was sort of like the incendiary scene where we were like, oh, wow. Like,
the lore is that after that scene was filmed, Bethenny went out and immediately called Andy Cohen to say, we got something here.
I don't know if that is true, but I absolutely believe that it would.
No,
be.
it is true because I think she like said it somewhere.
Yeah.
It's not lore, it's fact.
And kept it up. Like I remember I can't remember if it was before or after that scene. The ladies were throwing a charity event, and I think we were, whose apartment were we at? I can't remember. I think we were at Ramona's, and everyone was around a big table, and they were trying to pick out a date to throw an event, and Kelly was just solidly booked and could not come up with a date. And Bethenny just brought the room to a standstill. It's just like, what are you, Madonna?
I was just going to ask, were you in the room when she said, oh, apparently she's Madonna?
And it was, I mean, we all froze. I mean, happy as producers because we were like, uh-oh. But we just, we froze. I mean, and so, yeah, that was a good scene too.
The thing that I remember most about season 2. I mean, of course, there are those iconic moments, but for me personally, the thing that makes me warm and fuzzy inside is seeing Bethenny and Jill in Jill's Hamptons home when they're like in the jacuzzi or the pool.
In the pool, yep.
There are some scenes that just would never hit the air today. Like literally nothing happens in the scene, and it's more interesting than anything, than any of the flashy stuff that happens today.
Because back then we had the advantage of sort of establishing the tableau. You know, those scenes that you're talking about, everyone already has them in their head. They don't want to see. They want to see action. They don't need to have the set.
But the scenes also go on way longer in those old seasons. Like
they probably did. I'm trying to think.
Well, 100%. Yeah. Now it's like the TikTokification of everything just has to be 15 seconds long. Mm-hmm. Back then, like stuff had really took time to like unfold in a scene the way it would in a natural soap opera, how everything just feels endless.
Sure.
But what I was going to say about the opening of season 2, something I just will never forget and I will rewatch, is it opens with, they splash open page 6.
Oh, I could.
And Jill says to Bethenny says to Jill, "What did you do now?" and on the other line are Alex McCord and Simon.
So for that scene, I'm in Alex and Simon's home in Cobble Hill.
Okay, let's pause.
Yep.
What was that House of Horrors like?
They were actually, these are not ordinary people. They are not. But they are, in a strange way, they are couple goals. I mean, they are fused together. They think with one mind. You say one thing to one of them, they just look at the other, and then they come up with their answer together. And that is the truth, and I don't think they'd even dispute it. I mean, they are truly ride or die. On camera, off camera. I'm sure they've had arguments. I don't recall any time that they even disagreed. They were just very much on the same page about what this experience was going to be, what they were going to get out of it, and how far they were willing to go. And the scene you're talking about was actually much more historic than you might think, because that was the first time that on a show like this, we were acknowledging that they were on a show like this. And we went back and forth with Bravo for a while about it, including that day where we were on the phone. I can't remember who the execs were, but I certainly was on the phone with Matt, who was on the phone with other people, where we're like, we're going to try that. We're going to shoot these women talking about each other in the New York Post. So we're acknowledging that people know who they are. We weren't pretending anymore that being on the show wasn't its own status symbol. And I can barely remember even the content of the scene or what Cindy Adams or Page 6 even said that day, but I just remember it felt like history. It felt like history because like we're acknowledging that they're this famous, and it changed how we produced after that, because the fact that we could acknowledge that they were well known now because of the show opened up, it spawned other shows. You know what I mean? Like it's a very important factor of being on that show, is being on it is part of it.
I actually do remember the content. It was something to the effect that Simon said to Page 6, or initially it was a dig at Jill, something like, she's from Long Island and it shows, which you and I, but fellow Long Islanders.
Fellow Oceansiders, actually.
Oh my God.
Right?
Listeners, Dom and I both went to the same high school.
Right. At vastly different times.
Which is unbelievable that we figured that out. We figured that out within 3 minutes of meeting each other on a Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought you were straight, a hetero from my old high school.
Unbelievable. My dad's going to be so happy about that. He'll listen to that and wear it.
But that was and then Jill, I think, clapped back in she like had a rebuttal in some way, and that's what that was about.
It was also not the very first cell phone scene, but the first that I remember shooting where it's like we're going to have someone on speaker and we're going to carry on a conversation like this. Like I had never done that as a producer before. And it sounds so basic. I mean, people talk on phones so much on reality shows now, they don't even hold the phone up to their face when we're not rolling. They're those assholes you see talking on speakerphone on the street because they don't know you can put it to your face because that's what you do. Like everything has to happen for the people at home. Like you would never put the phone to your face.
Do you remember the scene where, this is years later, this is the famous "you don't support other women," when Ramona is shouting that at Bethenny, holding the speakerphone.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Coco, may she rest in peace, is like about to get run over by a car. Coco is in the street on a leash like 6 feet out.
Oh my God.
On Lexington.
I don't remember the Coco part, but I remember the screaming part.
The Coco part is the best. That's the best part of the whole thing. That definitely was in the hot sheet. Coco is almost dead.
Oh, I'm sure that it was in the hot sheet. Oh my God. Someone's in trouble. That's going to be you know what's going to happen from that Vanity Fair article? One person's going to get fired, and it's going to be the person who they find out leaked an Andy email because you should be fired. It should be assumed you don't leak your boss's thoughts or even that's part of the deal, especially since he wasn't doing or saying anything off color in the email. He was just doing his job and reacting to what was good footage for a reality show.
The most damning thing about Andy in the article was when Leah said she was telling him how she was drinking now. Like, I guess like in the process, she meets him eventually and says, "I'm drinking now." And he's like, "Oh, did you relapse on camera or off?" And she catches a vibe. Like it's purely her interpretation and her feeling. Leah catches a vibe that he's disappointed.
Right.
Which now he could be this is all like hearsay. This is like, there's no way to prove anything. But when you see it written, it is very damning.
Sure.
But that was weird. To me, he's
a television producer. I mean, it's not, I know it sounds cold and crass, and perhaps it is, especially
but it could also be wildly untrue.
When you hear something, when anyone you work with tells you something and you're working on a show like that, you're like, you won't believe what happened. The very first thing you say is, "Were we rolling?" It's always the first thing you say. That's why you even know the people that you're fucking talking about. Of course you're going to say, "Were we rolling? Did it happen on camera?" And again, it sounds cold if the events you're talking about are life-changing or life-ruining, but you know, this isn't RuPaul's Best Friend race. This is you're there to work and you're there to capture all of these moments. So
it's interesting also that this piece only focused on New York. Mm-hmm. Bethenny was like, "I know nothing of the other shows. Here are the 3 people I know." And it also seems like I just listened to an interview with Jax Taylor, and Jax is like, everybody on Vanderpump, everybody on all the other shows are like quite happy to be doing this job.
I think that this article did a disservice to Bethenny's cause. And I am a huge fan of Bethenny, by the way. I'm just in general, her whole energy. I'm a reality producer, so I'm not going to sit here and say, please destroy reality television, because I think that if she was trying to prove point, this article did the opposite of it. There was nothing damning.
Wait, you're a fan of Bethenny on the show?
No, in general, of everything about her life. She owns everything she says.
But what about how she's taking it, the exploitation, like sort of this new era of like the podcast?
Yeah, I certainly won't say like I think you should dismantle the medium that made you. I think that she's overshot a little bit with it.
Like, what is she trying to do? What is the goal?
I don't know. I don't know, but I bet she does, though. I know she does, actually. I think she's smart, and I think she's calculating. Whatever she's rallying against, she didn't fall victim to it. You know what I mean? Like, she was, from the moment I met her, she was hilarious and focused and very much, as she will say, like, producing her scenes with the producers. And that's not a bad thing. Like, she'll come up.
Was she an uncredited producer?
I wouldn't go that far. I mean, if she would ever, and you'll hear reality producers dance around this from Housewives. This is the only show where I would say this is how it goes. Everything I've worked on since then has been completely unscripted and unproduced. And that is me both covering my ass and telling the truth. But on a show like that, where you're telling 6 intertwining stories at once, as a producer, you do want to have some inkling of what might happen in the scene. And so when you're setting people up, you do say to the cast, what's going to happen here? You're going to sit down with Luann. How do you think it's going to go? Just so you're prepared and thinking ahead. You're not looking at them and saying, say this to Luann, pull her chair out, whatever. That's not how that situation happens. She was just more into that part of it than the other housewives were. She was always sort of, not scripting it, but promising stuff to producers. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this.
Even back in season 2.
1000%. And, you look at someone like that and just say, whatever you want. Yeah. Like, we want this to be real. That's it.
The quote in the article, she's like, I was in the machine. I created the machine. I am the machine.
Right now, she's trying to destroy it. She's like the Terminator, basically. She's the Arnold Schwarzenegger of reality television. I like her a lot. I don't think that the abuse that she's talking about is quite as damning and prolific as she thinks it is. I think there's abuse in every profession, but people keep coming back to do this for a reason. No matter how ironclad any contract is, if you don't want to do something, you do not have to do it.
And by the way, I think New York, it was the most prevalent because New York was largely a cast of known alcoholics. I mean, you look at Dorinda Medley, there's a scene where Bethenny says, I think you're an alcoholic on a plane.
Oh my God, that is hilarious.
Like, that's not the case in Beverly Hills.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Do you think that in the casting process that these women were breathalyzed and they actually had to blow past a .08 in order to even be considered to be on the show?
Okay, we're going to move on.
I want to say one thing before
Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I know, Kelly Ben-Simone, of course, because of her appearances on Bravo shows, has a reputation of being like utterly unhinged. And I just want to say she was so lovely, despite her and Bethenny being at war this season I worked there. Just a kooky lady, but absolutely lovely, truly. Like, just I thought, I rarely say that anyone gets edited out of character. Maybe she did a little bit. Like, she's as kooky as she was on the show, but she's also super sweet in person.
Were you there when she was running in traffic?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah. Her intro package, of course.
So who was she? Was it just like on the notes, like, I'm a runner, and we're like, oh, we just want to catch some B-roll of you running?
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, I'm just going to run in traffic.
If memory serves, yes, that is how it went down. She was very in on it and very excited to start the show, really. Like, just a true team player right from the beginning. And then it just sort of went south because she didn't get along with, the main mouth on the show. And that was, if you're going to not get along with someone, that's the person to do it if you want attention.
Go very quickly. Can we just go rewind a few minutes back to Alex and Simon?
Sure.
I feel like you have one shot in 2023 with Alex McCord with getting her back. Or 0 shots, or a miracle of 1 shot. To waste her on this Morocco girls trip, which may actually not even air.
I know, I heard.
And not use her for the RHONY legacy. Whoever did that deal, that person should be fired. That is the biggest fuck up that is on the short list of biggest Bravo fuck ups.
You know, I do think in the later season she was there that she wasn't, quote unquote, delivering the way that some of the other cast members had been. And I always took it as them putting her on Girls Trip as somewhat of like a re-audition, like to see if she had it in her.
But I don't want to see her with Brandi Glanville and people she's never met. I want to see her with
her old broads.
The people who she did this with.
Yeah.
Who cares about her chemistry with these other people who she's never met?
That's the real tea right there, is like if you can just unite the season 2 ladies, just all of them together, plus the people who came after, that's the Girls Trip. Like all the season 1 or 2 cast members, plus Sonia and Dorinda, like get the interesting ones. Put Leah in there. That's the Girls Trip you want to see, is just New York.
Now, you were the co-executive producer of season 4
of Atlanta. Right.
Now, this is the one where that famously kicks off with Sheree accusing Nene of stealing money for on her appearance fee.
Yes.
And Nene says the incredible line, "While you were busy running your mouth, I was running to the bank, sweetie. I am rich, bitch."
I was not there for that. I just finished shooting the second and final season of The A-List New York. And I worked at True Entertainment, now known as Truly Original. And they had shot half of the season. President of Truly asked if I would go down there and co-EP the second half of season 4 with the express purpose of getting to know Nene, because they were going to do a spin-off with her. They were going to do I Dream of Nene. So what happened was Nene and it wasn't that we didn't get along. She just didn't give a shit. She was just like, oh, they're sending another person down. She truly and very obviously ran the fucking show. She was the housewife. She was basically the Empress of Bravo at the time, and was just really not interested in someone new coming. I don't know what happened with her series, the spinoff. I know Carlos King ended up doing it several years later. What did end up happening was that I got along very well with Kim Zolciak, and she got engaged, and then Don't Be Tardy came up. So I went down there to sort of surreptitiously start executive producing one spinoff, and then just fell into another one and ended up EPing the first season, the wedding season of Don't Be Tardy. But when I was down there in season 4, it was very much the energy of Atlanta, very different than New York, where the women ran Atlanta. I don't know really how to explain it better than that. Other than
women ran it in. Well,
The women ran us. The crew did not run the cast. The cast ran the crew. New York was not like that. As difficult as anyone would be on the New York cast, they still mostly deferred to production. Atlanta was just a different vibe. The South is a different vibe. Being a black woman in the South is a different vibe. Taking direction from a bunch of white gay guys and you're a black woman in the South, absolutely discussable and true dynamic about what it was like.
What was that like?
It was, who was it? I can't remember if it was Candy or Sheree. It was Sheree when I went down there. And I don't think this is a bad thing to say, but she was sitting in a car with someone. And again, I had come down in the middle of the season. And when I leaned in and I put my hand in the car to shake her hand and introduce myself, and she said, "So you're the latest white boy they sent down here from New York." And that was Sheree's first line to me. And we laughed, and I was like, yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, that was it, because prior to season 4, I believe all of the executive producers of Real Housewives of Atlanta had been gay white men. The season I was down there were 2 co-EPs. The guy that I replaced, I believe, was white and gay. The other co-EP who existed was African-American, which I'm not allowed to say anymore. Krista Rosa told me I should stop saying African-American and just say black, but I'm old and I'm slow to learn.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was just listening to a podcast and they were talking about this, and they're like, "Where did that come from? Why is it African-American?" And they were like, "We don't want to be called that.
I know.
We're black. We're not, not all of us are from Africa."
And right, and that's true. And so she was Leola.
Oh, you know who said that? It was Heather McDonald talking about the Wayans brothers when she worked with them on White Chicks. She said, "How do you want to be?" And they taught her that, and she recently
and she learned it.
She learned it.
Also, Carlos King at the time was the supervising producer. And I mean, to be honest with you, like basically another cast member on the show. Like Carlos was the key to everything that has ever happened on Real Housewives of Atlanta.
I wanted to add, this was my main question regarding Atlanta was, is it surprising, it sounds like no, that he became a personality in himself?
Yeah. I mean, I would say it would have been a surprise if he hadn't, because to know him back then was to know this version of him now. I mean,
what was his greatest contribution?
Just knowing the cast, like just being their actual friend. Doing his job without betraying them, which is, I believe, what he still does, because it is a fine line. You know, I mean, he was a mini Andy. Well, now he's a maxi Andy, like in real life, but down there he was juggling all of them, really, like he was the key.
Do you think Alex Baskin over at Evolution, the way he is in with the cast of Vanderpump, do you think that he has that magic friend touch with them?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, because I don't know Alex, and I don't know what the work situation is at Vanderpump, but I can tell you what they accomplished this last season takes an amount of talent and organization and forethought that people would just dismiss. But to bring everyone back and to get what they got it's legendary episodes of television, truly. And I know the people roll their eyes at this Emmy nomination. Fuck all those people.
Who rolls their eyes?
Because of the type of show that it is. They can't believe that Vanderpump would sneak in with some of the other shows that are normally nominated in that category. But it was that show was nominated by television producers because they know what it took to get everyone back. It's an extraordinary feat.
You know what I thought was the most brilliant part of the entire the entire ending of the finale and then the reunion? Mm-hmm. The last 6 minutes of the reunion part 3.
Okay.
Where it's like Raquel, after the reunion, Raquel went off the grid and then she had to come back to film some of her pickups.
Yep.
And the producer gets her to spill everything. He's like, why are you still lying? And she admits to everything.
Yeah.
It reminded me of the ending of The Jinx. And he goes, you're right. Killed them all. It was Jinxian.
Wow.
Wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It sent shivers up my spine. My first thought was, this is the ending of The Jinx.
Now, since you brought up Raquel, that's one, like, if this Vanity Fair article wanted to be expose-esque,
girl,
that's the story to tell. Just talk about how that happened. Like, if that's the shit that Bethenny's referring to, not Leah peeing on the side of the Long Island Expressway. That's none of that's interesting. All the thing, dragging very accomplished producers' names through the mud in this article for no reason really, other than to just make it seem legitimate, mentioning Andy's email. The damning part was that anyone reproduced his email. What he said in it was not damning at all. It was just very...
This was the thing where he said, these are incredible notes. These are going to make incredible episodes of television.
Yeah.
That email.
That's the job. That is the job. Yeah.
Yeah. What's he supposed to say?
I have no idea.
How
are we supposed to react to it?
The auto reply on Gmail that goes, awesome, thank you.
Right.
You know what I mean? Do you need to take that?
Should I just answer it live?
Yeah.
All right, hang on. Hello?
Krista Rosa, you're live on Hot Takes and Deep Dives. Do you want to give an exclusive? Do you want to give an exclusive reaction as a former RHONY producer? Do you want to give a formal statement to the Vanity Fair piece?
I hate both of you. No comment. Goodbye.
He's gonna hang up.
I'm leaving that in. That's amazing. DOMINICK PUPA, I just thought of one more question about season 2
Go
for you.
for it.
Okay. So when I was on Fixing Famous People, of course, promoting Fire Island, you mentioned that you're a Fire Island guy. One of the first things I was like, oh my God, this is before I even knew you produced New York.
Right.
I was like, oh my God, do you guys
Oh my
remember?
God.
I'm like, do you remember the deleted scene of Bethenny going to the Pines? and all of that. And you're like, yeah, I was there actually.
That was my scene. Yeah.
Tell the people what they want.
It was just-
Give the
First of all,
gays everything
the
they
fact
want.
that we were even shooting on Fire Island was insane to me. Because
whose idea was this? How did this happen?
I can't remember whose idea it was. It was most likely Matt Anderson's idea because he was the EP of the show at the time.
To schlep out to Fire Island?
Yeah, but she was, I don't know if she was a gay icon at that point, but she obviously has iconically gay characteristics that would make her one. And if memory serves, she had friends there and she went to go visit the friends. And then we walked on the beach, and the memory that I have of it was a producer who I won't name, and a producer who had also was a regular on Fire Island, walking very far ahead of the camera crew because we were like, we're never going to get laid again. This is so embarrassing. Like, we're shooting a television show on the beach and everyone's just trying to be left alone. And Bethenny was walking down the beach screaming, whatever Bethenny does. And some queen sat up from the blanket and audibly yelled, "You're making a fool of yourself," to Bethenny, who just didn't care. She kept yammering on. I just covered my face. We were just like, this is bad. This is bad for us socially.
Did you all stay overnight, or was this a day trip?
It was a day trip. Yep. It was a day trip.
This was the old pavilion.
Yes.
Before it burned down. If
Yep.
you watch the footage, that was because the day that we recorded Fixing Famous People, I had just posted the clip. Every summer I'll post it on my Instagram, and now that I had the Fire Island podcast, I was like, more relevant than ever. I have it saved in my phone.
Was
People
the
like
old,
now
yep.
talk about. So people are like, wait, if this is deleted, how did you have this? And I had it because I recorded it on my phone when the shows were on Hulu. They would keep those that never aired.
So what I'm going to guess happened is that they were snap-ins. So when you're recording a 42 minute show, like an hour-long drama, when you sell it internationally, they have to be 48 to 50 minutes. So I don't know of a television show that doesn't have snap-ins, but when you have to deliver to international a longer show than will air in the US. With a whole bunch of tech specs, and so they can slide it in, like they have to know exactly where to slide. It's not just like an additional scene. You bulk up the entire show. Sometimes the snap-ins will be 6 minutes total, but will be part of 4 different scenes. So that's probably what happened. That's probably how it even aired. It was probably an international version of the show.
Wow.
Isn't that strange? Yeah. Every show you watch, every reality show you watch has, obviously there's footage you're not seeing.
Well,
but there's
the end, they always have the never before scene.
Right. There's edited scenes and parts of scenes that, if you go to Sweden, you'll see all the dirt. Everyone in Sweden sees everything on an American reality show.
Any other memories of spending time with Bethenny in the Pines?
She was just a blast. She was just fun to be around. She's my favorite. That energy is just my favorite energy. I love loud, funny, sometimes too loud, I love that shit. I love a New York. She's just someone I'd be friends with. I wish that I was still friends with her. She's just, and owns everything she says, not a backtracker.
And you said that how many years were you on Fire Island?
Summers, close to, 20. Really, I'm trying to think about it.
No, were you doing shares or just like...
Yep. Yeah.
Wow. And I remember you said that there was one summer, I think, that you lived there full time.
Yes. Yeah.
And you were coming back. What was like your schedule?
I was going back and forth. I was doing the warm up at my only job that summer. I didn't produce any television. My only job that summer was I was doing the warm up for the TYRA Banks show. And they only taped, she only taped Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I wasn't living anywhere in the city. I don't know why I was so transient here at the time. I think I was in between apartments, or maybe I'd rented it out. And so I would just come back to the city on Tuesday mornings, stay at a friend's, do 6 TYRA shows, and then go back to the island on Thursday night. And it was insane. It was I think I damaged my body that summer. We went out You just go out every night. Yes, were there peaceful moments? Sure, absolutely. Weeks we weren't taping when you're out there on a Tuesday and Wednesday, lovely, like truly lovely, calm. And anyone who's out there for any length of time will be like, you got to be here on a Wednesday. It's just so nice. You get to enjoy it because no one's here. And that is true. But living out there, it becomes, it's its own reality show. Like the regulars, the people who live there it is its own show, and they also would never want to be on television for it. They wouldn't be.
Why did they fuck up that the Fire Island reality show that was produced? It was for Logo, produced by Kelly Ripa and Mark
by Malojo. Yeah.
How did they fuck that up so bad?
Know.
I feel like it makes so much natural sense. Don't you think the missing show is like the gay summer house, and
Sure.
it should be set on Provincetown or Fire Island?
Sure.
From what I understand, I interviewed somebody who's based in Boston, and he's been up for a lot of castings
Right.
with Bravo or different production companies, and that's the show he always pitches.
Right.
And they've said the network, aka Bravo,
Right.
does not want an all gay cast.
I've heard that before. I heard that when we were shopping the A-list around. Bravo. I mean, it aired on Logo, I believe, because Bravo wasn't interested in it.
Let's talk about the A-list, New
Okay.
York. I was obsessed with those.
Which is a good. I mean, I'm not telling. I'm like saying you're doing a great job, but this is a great thing to talk about since we're talking about why didn't Fire Island work, because I think the answer to why that Fire Island show didn't work also answers the question of why the A-list New York didn't stay on longer.
But it lasted 2 seasons, and then a
it.
spinoff in Dallas. They did
that one season. That was it. One season for Dallas and just 2. And the Dallas season aired concurrently with the New York season. They really wanted to franchise this, but the reaction to the show from the queer community before the show even premiered was horrible. It was just horrible.
But that's just like the show with Brad Goreski.
It was, I mean, now the internet wasn't as prevalent back then as it is now, and I'm glad, because that show, which I didn't see, that was the real Friends of West Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's savaged before anyone had even seen it, and it sort of all goes hand in hand with why that missing show, the gay summer house, do it in Provincetown, do it in Fire Island. It's because we still very much view they're such safe spaces, and maybe not secret worlds anymore like they were when I was in my 20s going to Fire Island, but they are viewed as sort of like there's something sacred about them. There's something sacred about, like, this is an all gay town. This is a fantasy that doesn't even make sense in the world we live in. Don't fucking come here. That's how I felt when we were shooting on Fire Island. We shot the A-list New York on Fire Island, which was just 1 or 2 episodes. I very much felt like that, and had friends who would not appear on the show. We shot some of those things at the Share I stayed at that summer, which was now I think known as the Fire Island Club. It's where they have the DRA every year. So I lived in that house, I think,
the Pines Club.
Pines Club, yes. And we had friends who were living there who deliberately switched their weekends because we were going to be shooting there for an afternoon. They wanted nothing to do with it.
But going back to like the vitriol that came out about A-list New York, and then now modern, flash forward to the Real Friends of WeHo, to what do you attribute that?
Partially that still. I mean, I think maybe not about Fire Island, but about the gay community in general. I still think that people, for some of us for a lot of us coming out was rough. It was an achievement, and you didn't want the thing you achieved to be something that would just be smacked around on reality television. Like, being gay is something that, to me, too, to a certain extent, is a very serious thing. It's not something that you want to see exploited. And I think if people had watched the A-list New York, they would have seen that it was still a reality show.
I think people watched it. Like, everyone I know, like, we still talk about it.
I guess not enough people. I don't know, but it received a lot of backlash. I loved the show. I'm proud of the show. I loved everyone on the show. They were definitely guinea pigs. They were sort of like the first out gay reality
I mean,
show.
let's talk about the cast. We
Sure.
had Mike Ruiz,
Yes.
famous photographer.
Mike Ruiz, the Jenna Lyons of the A-List New York, because he didn't need to do the show. I don't know that Mike was as successful on A-List as Jenna was on RHONY, but he showed up knowing exactly what his boundaries were on that show, and he never crossed them. He was the name for the show in the way that Jenna was. He was already an established photographer. He had been on RuPaul's Drag Race, which at that time was the only, gay show on television.
It's interesting that Drag Race, that's another all gay show. Like, why is that revered and beloved by the community and these other? And it is, and granted, maybe it's because it's a competition,
Sure,
and people get into the competition aspect, but we can sort of
a competition too, and also I don't want to get too deep about it, but people are wearing for the most part masks on that show. That's what it's about. I mean, A-List New York was about real people.
Yeah, but people fall in love
out of drag.
People fall in love with the people.
100%, but it's not about everything you know about the day-to-day lives of the people on that show is revealed in little vignettes at the makeup mirror. And if you're revealing something about your life, you're sitting back and going, uh-oh, you may be getting chopped this week.
Or it's, RuPaul wants his Emmy nomination.
Exactly. So it was different, sort of unprotected by drag on the A-List New York.
Okay, so we had Mike Ruiz.
Yep.
We had Riken.
Yes.
Who infamous because this was Lance Bass's boyfriend.
Yes.
At the time he publicly came out on People Mag. That's how everybody knew Riken.
Yep.
And he was kind of a flop.
He was already smarting in the public. Also, Riken, by the way, truly super accomplished before he got on reality. He was a pilot and a businessman, a true Renaissance man who dated the wrong person at the wrong time in pop culture history and just became that dude. He very quickly went from groundbreaking, amazing race champion to Lance Bass's boyfriend.
Right.
Maybe got the short end of the stick in pop culture history because he dated Lance for a very brief amount of time, I might add.
Brief.
This was not a long relationship. I won't say that didn't contribute to his getting cast on the show because I think that
well, obviously it's the only
that's
reason
how we
he was
knew who he was. Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think people knew who he was. Not a lot of people, but people knew who he was from Amazing Race.
Now, my favorites on the show.
Yeah.
You had this guy, Derek, and you had Austin
Yes.
Armacost.
Yes.
Who were collectively the Bethenny and Jill.
100%.
These were at first rivals,
Right.
and then BFFs.
Yep. It was a feud, and then they were besties. And when they were besties, they were insane the whole time, but when they were besties, it sort of took us by surprise and was very much like this is gold. This is a dynamic duo.
Talk to me about being a warm-up comedian. So you've done this.
Mostly fun, sometimes thankless.
Talk to me about, who was it? Jessica Curson?
Yo, my
Fabulous
God, of
comedian.
course.
She's talked about being the warm-up comedian at Bethenny's talk show.
Oh, wow.
And how horribly Bethenny treated her.
Oh, wow. See, the shows that I did it on were, I did it at Ricki Lake for a while.
Like the talk show Ricki?
Yes, the Ricki Lake Show, the original one in the 90s and O's.
Fucking
Yeah.
iconic.
Oh, yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Oh, a great. I mean, and many of us who still work there who work there are still friends. They just recently did a 25th reunion of the premiere of the show, which I didn't get to attend, but I'm still friends with Ricki. I've been on her podcast. She comes to my shows when I perform in LA. She is, it sounds so cliche. She's the person you see on television. She's that cool and that funny and that chill. And
a couple friends of mine ran into her at the Cubbyhole.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
not there looking for dates. I don't think. Although I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know.
She lived in that neighborhood.
I don't know why
for a
she was.
long
I don't
time.
know why she was there. Although
I didn't know if you were insinuating that she was there looking for a little something.
I am just
but-
reporting the news. I'm not insinuating anything. These are just facts. Yeah, and then later, one of them sent her a cameo
right.
that I forget what they were asking for in the cameo. But it was relating to the cubbyhole
Sure.
thing. And she did the cameo for that.
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
her. Yeah,
but
that's
I wonder
her.
if she was there because she is really good friends with Andy Cohen, who lives around the block.
Sure. She was great for the warm-up because at that warm-up, I introduced her every day, and we would hug when she came out, and it was real. And every day when I hugged her, hello, I would whisper a line from Hairspray into her ear. And she just loved it. And I don't know if there's ever video of it, but you can see her walking out and she's looking at the audience. She looks at me and she starts laughing and she's like, what's it going to be today? And I'd just be like, my diet pills are kicking in. And she would just scream and then go greet the audience. That audience too, like that was a groundbreaking show. Like we were doing stuff on television that no one had ever seen before. So the audience was hungry. I could have gotten up there and just farted into the microphone. They would have been so excited about it. It wouldn't have even mattered. And then I did it at The View, which was a very different experience.
What year?
2005. So we had Meredith, one of the most wonderful people I've ever met in show business, if not the most wonderful, would periodically come up to me and be like, how's it going out there? How you feeling? No reason to ask me any of this shit. Genuinely interested in people. Joy barely interacted with her. Star barely interacted with her. Elizabeth barely interacted with her. Barbara never interacted with her. At all. But what would get that crowd going was because Barbara was not there every day, and if they found out Barbara was there, they would lose. These old white women who would sit in the audience would lose their shit. And I remember thinking to like making note of that, which is just like they don't know her, but they know her. They've known this woman for 50 years on television. Just knowing she was in the building, they would lose their mind. And at the time, she's in her late 70s. Like, she's a superstar.
It's
like,
surprising
truly.
to me that no interaction with Joy Behar, considering she's a comedian.
Yeah, but she was always busy. And it wasn't, when I say no interaction, I don't mean like she was rude. I just mean like we never, I didn't introduce them. They came out live. So it was I didn't have a relationship with those hosts because of that. I met Joy officially the first day I was there. She was sitting on a little lounge. She was like on a chaise in her office. And someone introduced me. She's like, so are you funny? I was like, I don't know. You're going to find out in about 5 minutes. She's like, you don't sound too confident. I was like, I'm not. And then she laughed, and then I went out and did my thing, and that was it. And then I did it at TYRA for one season. That was also a different.
This was your Fire Island era.
This was my Fire Island era, and introducing her was different. There was no hug. I just did it from one side of the stage, and she came out the runway.
Let's be clear. It's not just introducing the host. You're literally interacting. Describe the job of
You're warming them up. You're making sure.
Are you doing like a full set for them?
Yeah. A set that I wouldn't do in a club. I mean, you're doing most of the set I based around how they should behave in the audience, what makes a good audience member. Pretty standard warm-up stuff. Occasionally I would sneak actual material in there. Very rarely though. What we would do a lot of audience participation stuff that Jessica Curson is the undisputed empress of wherever she goes.
Yeah.
So she must have been the best warm-up comic ever, I would imagine. But but we would do a lot of game show stuff, trivia stuff, like walk on Tyra's runway, like all the stuff. And that audience just sort of came prepared, like the RICKI Lake Show audience. That was not a hard job. Warming up the View audience was that was work. It was actual work. Warming up TYRA and RICKI Lake, I mean, it was fun. Like every day I looked forward to doing all that. One day the power went out in the control room and I had to stay up there. I'm not exaggerating, for 3 hours. I had 3 hours. I had to stand up there. The audience, they wanted to leave. They were bringing them sandwiches. I ran out of tricks. Finally, TYRA walked out after like 2 hours and 15 minutes in her robe and said, hey, y'all, we're having a little electrical problem in the control room. And I thought, thank God she's out here. Not thinking, oh, she's wearing a robe. She's not going to stay out here. And I thought I was going to at least get like 10 minutes to go pee. She just turned around and walked out. And I was like, I still got to stay out here. I'm like, do you understand? I'm hoarse. Like I've run out of, am I getting double pay for this today? This is insane. Finally, the lights came back on and they rolled on the show. I don't even think I stayed for the show. I think I stormed out. I was so upset. that no one came to relieve me. I think I threw a tantrum.
Now, what took me the most by surprise in your very lengthy list of credits was you as a production assistant on the Joan Rivers show, 1989 to 1993.
Just 93.
Just
89
93.
was when I graduated high school. I graduated from college in 93. I was an intern there in 92, and then they offered me the receptionist position in 1993, and it was...
And you were a production assistant?
Yep, we were PA. I was a PA and the receptionist.
Where did they shoot this?
They shot it at CBS Broadcast Center on West 57th.
I mean, what was the level of interaction with Joan?
You had to get there early for me because she would always be there at the crack of dawn. And I've told this story before. It's been published actually after she passed away. The journalist Lisa DiPaolo published it in her remembrance of Joan. On my first day there, I got there super early because I wanted to get the lay of the land and everything. I'd already been an intern, but I wanted to do a good job and work in television. And I found a TV guide which had Joan's picture on it. And it was half of her face before plastic surgery and half and it was a mostly positive article. She had to sanction her being on there. She breezed into the office. I'm not going to impersonate Joan, even though I probably sound enough like her naturally, but she comes in the office and shocked me because she's usually on the office was on one side of West 57th. The studio was on the other. She breezed in for a minute and I was sitting there reading the TV guide and she was like, why are you reading that? I hate the fucking TV guide. They published my real age in there. And I was like, I'm so sorry, I'll throw it away. She goes, don't you dare throw it away. My face is on the cover. And I was so flustered. And she said a couple of nice things on the way out and actually said, if Elizabeth Taylor calls, tell her I'm dead. And walked out of the office. And I was like, I just saw Joan Rivers doing Joan Rivers at work. And it was my very first day. It is a core memory of being in this business. And it was my first day at my first paying job. That was the first 10 minutes of it in television, which I think should be in the program at my funeral. If anyone is listening, put that in there. It only got worse from there. No, it's all been good, but that was a great first day. And working there was great. She's Joan Rivers every minute of the day. Just hilarious, truly hilarious.
I have enjoyed every single second of this.
I have as well. And I love you. And thank you for saying that.
Now, DOMINICK PUPA, you're about to go on tour. People, if you're listening, you can see Dom live in Dom We Now, our gay apparel.
That's right. My annual holiday fagtacular.
How many years have you been doing this?
I think this is 10. I think this will officially be the 10th year that I've done it. I performed for longer than that, but doing a holiday show started, I guess, in 2013. And then I've just been I used to do it at the Duplex here all the time. And then I started doing it at the Cutting Room. And then I just started traveling with it. I was like, oh, people will come if I do this. That's what the internet does. It gets people from other cities to come see you. And it's just been a blast.
Is it a one-man show or do you have other people?
It's just me.
Perfect.
Song parodies, comedy. It's mostly about the year that was and then just whatever new stand-up I'm doing that year. And it's a blast. And I'm doing it this year in New York, obviously, but I'm going to Chicago and Boston, LA, San Francisco, Atlanta. I think I'm doing it in DC. The place I was doing it at closed this week unexpectedly. So I'm trying to find another place to do it. Thank God they closed in November and not in December 10th. But DC, hang on, I'm coming there. And you can go to my social media, which is at DOMINICK PUPA, or my website is domentary.com. Isn't that clever? I mean, it was 10 years ago. Now I'm just sort of embarrassed.
It. Listen,
it's like commentary, but with a D.
I'm a fan. You're going to be in New York City on December 16th.
Yes.
It's a Saturday night,
yes,
baby.
Ma'am.
Is it a Saturday?
It is a Saturday. It's a Saturday at 7 p.m. And if you're gay and have tickets to Madonna that evening, that old bitch ain't going on till 9:30. So you should come to the Cutting Room at 7, see my show, and then we're going to get a gay shuttle for all of you that are going to Barclays, and then you can head right over to Brooklyn and see Madonna after that.
The reason why I was like, is this a Saturday? Literally, I'm like looking at the Madonna. I'm skiing and the Madonna dates in my head. I'm like, because I'm seeing her Wednesday, the 13th.
Thank goodness.
Are you going?
I was supposed to go on the 13th, but that's the day I'm performing in D.C. Hopefully.
Okay. So what are you gonna?
The tickets are gone.
The tickets are gone.
They
Are you
already
gonna
gone
get
away.
other tickets?
I don't think so. I think I'm going to have to miss this time because I'm traveling so much during the month. But when she got sick, obviously I was concerned. And then when she redid the dates, I was like, this bitch.
But she's also coming to Madison Square Garden in January.
I heard. I do not have tickets to that. I will try to get some, but I would imagine on this short notice I'd have to sell an organ to do that. But we'll see.
Which I had to do.
Oh my gosh. Well,
no, we're actually for people.
Worth it.
For
you never
people,
know when she's going to say this is it.
For people listening, I am doing a recap. I'm going with Ben Rimmelauer as my date to Madonna on the 13th.
God.
And the next day, we are going to record a fully unhinged recap review of our full experience of the evening. And that will be the next episode that comes out.
Ben, this is the thing. If you're billing it as something unhinged, you're talking about Ben, who, from my experience of him being on our podcast, arrives unhinged. So if you're billing it as more unhinged than that, I will be listening.
I was going to say, if you don't know where to start with fixing famous people,
start with Ben's episode or yours.
You can start with mine, which is the Ellen DeGeneres one. After you listen to that, Ben Rimmelauer, who everyone knows, I've interviewed him many times, Luann's cabaret director. He also is the star of Finding Fire Island.
Yeah.
He gives the most quotables. His episode, even if you do not give a shit or even care about Leah Michelle, it's not about Leah Michelle.
It's about Ben.
It's about Ben Rimmelauer.
It's about Ben saying that Glenn Close should be shot in the street if she goes anywhere near the Sunset Boulevard movie. That's what it's about. It's about death threats to gay icons. And somehow it's okay. Because, he doesn't really mean it, but to hear it come out of his mouth, one of the most hilarious people I've met in a very long time, because I'd never met him. Somehow, after all these years of us intersecting, I know he did Patty Issues at the Duplex at 100. I don't know how I've not met him before, but in the hour that I spent with him, I obviously fell in love. He's everything. When you say there's a gay guy coming over, that's the gay guy you want. That's the gay guy you want to introduce to your family. That's the gay guy you want to marry. That's the gay guy you want planning your funeral.
Ben and I have talked about getting married. Ben and I have talked about if we don't fall in love by like 50 or whatever, like if we don't fall in love the next 10 years, we're going to get married. And I was like, yeah, like we can all share. And he's like, no. The point is that we have separate apartments. I'm like, oh, okay, got it.
That is wonderful.
I love you.
I love you.
One more time, just your social media where everyone can follow you.
My website is dominterry.com. My socials are at Dominick Pupa. And you can also do a search for the podcast, Fixing Famous People, with Chris DeRosa and Dominick Pupa, wherever podcasts are podcasted. You'll find it.
This was a blast. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.